Hello again. We're back to talking about religion. And today's miniature audio is about Buddhism. It's a very interesting point of view Buddhism has. There are many variations of Buddhism. The variation that I'm going to speak about is an intellectual and very deep point of view. It's what makes Buddhism very unique. When people look at Buddhists walking with their robes, their orange robes, and sometimes with their hands folded, which would appear to be in a prayer position, they really are not actually praying. However, if people want to say they're praying, the Buddhists will not contradict you. Buddhism is a religion like the Hindu religion that depends upon your self-realization. The more you investigate the true nature of reality, the more you come to understand. And it's a path that individuals walk on their own. And it means that people who are interested in trying to follow Buddhism, each of them are at different levels of understanding. So I'm going to try to give you an intellectual explanation of a concept which is called no self or anatman, which is fundamental in Buddhist thinking. And again, this conversation depends on different levels of understanding about the real world. Just like the Hindu religion, no one's in a hurry in Buddhism. It is a way of life. There's no doubt about it. And Buddhism does not deny anyone's personal beliefs about gods or maybe heavens, etc. Because when you hear my point in a few minutes here, you'll see it's really fine to believe in those kinds of ideas. However, there is an intellectual point that I'm going to make about them. And this is not to be taken as an offense to anybody, but it's an intellectual point which has been around for quite a long time. So in the book, our textbook, you will read about Siddhartha Gautama and the myth surrounding him. And there's different stories about how he became the Buddha. The word Buddha, B-U-D-D-H-A, just means someone who is enlightened. That is, someone who has seen the truth. But to explain the truth is not the same thing as experiencing the truth. So to understand the routines of the Buddhist is to actually practice the routines. And the more you practice the routine, the more you come to understand what their points are. An analogy would be something like, I suppose, getting a skateboard, let's say, or a surfboard, let's say. When you buy one of those, they don't come with a set of instructions. You have to learn how to use them. And sometimes you fail, but then you do it again. And it's a way of mastering a technique of how to ride a surfboard or a skateboard. And it's a way of sort of feeling how to manipulate yourself on the board with wheels or on the water. And again, there's no instructions. You sort of have to want to do it. You have to want to and if you want to do something, then you will continue. If you don't want to, that's fine too. You can just stop. So Siddhartha Gautama, as you read in the book, was born into great riches. But it's difficult to see the world properly when you are with great riches. You really cannot experience the pain of people who are not rich, who are suffering economically, because, well, you're not. That's a physical fact. And I'm not opposed and saying anything against the people who are rich. I'm just saying for a physical fact is that the people who are living much better their lifestyle, and Siddhartha Gautama was a prince, precluded him from actually understanding the suffering of ordinary people until one day he jumped the walls with his friend and he saw the suffering. And he was very sensitive, and so this upset him. And as you read, make kind of short of this part, he decided to join some monks. And of course, that meant he gave up all of his riches because he wanted to see how is it possible that people who are so rich can mistreat people who are poor and can treat them with such disdain if we're all the same. That is, the Hindu point of view says we're all from the same consciousness, and why is it that there are people who are being treated one way better than other people? It just seemed kind of odd, right? So he did join the monks, and he was able to do extreme acts of self-mortification and could I should say out-monk the regular monks, right? He was able to do fantastic things, but still he felt like this was not enough. Now, these stories of the myth are important, and then I'll get to the intellectual part in a minute, because in one of the stories, again, there's different kinds of myths about him, have him sitting under a Bodhi tree for quite a lot of days, many nights, without moving until he sees the truth or finds the truth. Well, when you imagine sitting down in a lotus position, you just try it yourselves if you're able to sit in a cross-legged position for just I don't know, a couple hours if you can, then try to get up right away. Even if you're somewhat young, I imagine you'd be kind of stiff. Well, imagine the story being told that you're sitting under a tree day and night and not moving for quite a lot of days. That's an amazing story, right? So the point of the story is to show us that he was an amazing man, not a prophet, he's a man. So any one of us who want to be able to see the truth can follow his techniques. That's what Buddhism is about, following techniques. And at different levels of understanding, if you're interested. If you're not interested, that's fine too. Now, let's get to the intellectual part. So one of the stories that I like about Buddha is something called the Fire Sermon, which is not in our textbook, but I do make reference to it and give a notation by Henry Clark Warren from the Fire Sermon, original Pali text. And the sentence says, all things, O priests, are on fire. And then it goes on. This is supposed to be one of the first sermons he gave after he became enlightened. Buddha didn't write anything down, just like Jesus Christ did not, and also Socrates. They did not write anything down. People wrote these things down years later. But the reason it's important is the speech. It is a piece of logic in my interpretation. Every version of Buddhism I'm aware of, there's Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Zen, and others, have one thing in common. They all subscribe to something called the Four Noble Truths. The first truth is all life is suffering. The second truth is the root of suffering is desire. The third is there is a way to eliminate this suffering. And the fourth is the way to do it. It's called the Eightfold Path. And when the first truth says all life is suffering, it's clear to understand that we mean sickness, COVID-19, cancer. Of course, that's obvious. But the more important kind of suffering that we're discussing about is mental suffering. Mental suffering, in particular, we don't mean like just mental disease. The mental suffering which comes with our thoughts that are involved in believing that there is a permanence in the universe, a permanence in reality somewhere. In the Hindu tradition, what is permanent is ultimate consciousness. the realm of Maya, which is matter, is undergoing constant change. Well, we have a bit of a problem here to address. A way to understand this in a quick way is by the following sentence. We either do believe or do not believe the following sentence. Sentence under consideration is all things change, which is the point of the first sentence of the fire sermon. When a philosopher, and Buddha was a philosopher also, uses the word fire, that means constant change. It's a metaphor for constant change. And the sentence says, all things, O priests, are on fire. They're fire with rage, many different things are the source of fire. But the point being is, if all things change, if we say that's a true sentence, then that also means we can't say there's something which is permanent, because both sentences, that is, all things change, and there's something permanent, they would be in a contradiction to each other. Now, do we have reason to believe that all things change? Yes, we do. Look at the world of physical matter. The plants, they change, they grow old, they die. Our bodies grow old and they die. The atomic structures inside our body are always changing, the atoms. And people get healthy and sick, yes. So, as we move along in life, our physical bodies change. That's self-evident by now. But within ourselves, we have our thoughts. And the point of the lecture that I'm going to post spends some time discussing our thoughts, because there is where the proof of the point of no self or anatman or no soul is to be understood. And I'll begin by saying this. Let's do a thought experiment. It's a silly example. Let's imagine that you can all think of the word chocolate, and only chocolate and no other thoughts. Oh, try for 3 hours. Well, imagine that it wouldn't be too long before you realize you can't do it. Whether we like it or not, our thought will change from chocolate to, say, chocolate milk, maybe a second later to chocolate milk with cookies. Well, who knows what the stream of consciousness will be? Maybe it'll be chocolate, take out the trash, I got to go to the store. It doesn't make a difference what the change is. The point is that our thoughts will change, whether we like it or not. So why is this important? Well, it's important because when the Buddha says all things are on fire, all things change, and he was speaking to a select few that followed him, and they understood his point, it means this. There are many religions and people who believe that there's something inside of us called the soul, or the Atman if you're the Hindu, which is going to live on after we die and be reused again. Well, there is implication there that there's something permanent that's going to return again, something permanent. So if your name is Zeke in the physical body, that particular soul will come back maybe as a different name called Herbie or Mo or something like that. But it's the same soul, same Atman being used again and again, with just different headings, different names for the Hindu reincarnation theory. Well, that's fine, except what we're now saying in a deeper way is with the chocolate example, because our thoughts changed, again, reviewing from the word chocolate to chocolate milk to chocolate cookies and whatever we came up with, it means that the content of the thought was also changing and blending with another thought. And this point of continuous change is brought on page 152 with a conversation called the skandhas, Skandha, skandhas. And that's how they discuss what a soul is. A soul is made of 5 pieces, not one, like the Hindu. And the 5 pieces together make us who we are. But the five pieces are undergoing continuous change. So think of it this way. If the word chocolate changes, well, try a different word. Try to define who you are. If your name is Zeke, Herbie, or Mo, of course, that's not your name, but whatever name you have, try to define yourselves in such a unique way that the definition will always be permanent. And let's try it right now on July, whatever date you want to make it be. And now let's ask ourselves, come back a few days later and look at that definition and ask yourself, do you want to keep that definition that you just made? Or do you want to change it up a little bit sometime after you made it? I'm willing to imagine that you're going to want to change it up just a little bit, because now what? The physical world has changed, your body has changed, your environment has changed, your attitude has changed, your opinion has changed about some things. So what was it that you were trying to say was permanent about your definition of who you are? Well, if you just tell me you have parents, well, so other people do too, right? The point of making a definition is to find something unique that does not change. And oftentimes people express this when they look at relatives, and they might say to one of their relatives, my, how she has changed. And then they say immediately, but she's still the same. I'm sure we've used that phrase ourselves, but that phrase is contradictory. It's a contradictory phrase because you can't have them both, constant change and no change. So when we are thinking now about a word called sunyata, which is expressed on page 166 and bottom of 166 and 167, it is a word which refers to emptiness. And it means that if all things change, there's nothing permanent in the world. Now, when I say impermanent, it's obvious that you have a body, but it changes. It's obvious that you have a family, but it changes. It's obvious that you have, a history, but it changes. But as we're living, we are still suffering in this respect. We're hoping and wishing for something to be permanent. Yet with our thoughts, we cannot conceptualize an idea which is permanent. Oh, you might tell me, well, you believe in God. Well, look in our textbook, how many different versions of God are there? Well, you might say, well, I don't care. I believe in what I believe in. That's fine with the Buddhists. Believe in what you want to believe. That's fine. But your belief does not make something permanent. It's a paradox. The paradox is rather simple. If there's no permanence right now in this physical world, and also no way to keep our thoughts permanent right now, then it follows there can be no permanence in the future. This also includes theories about life after death. We might even say, as a Buddhist, yeah, we believe in life after death. We believe the soul will come back. But what we're saying is those 5 skandhas, which make up the soul, they'll come apart like a jigsaw puzzle and be reused again and make another soul. But it won't be the soul called Zeke, Herbie, or Mo. It'll be something else. Because if you think of a jigsaw puzzle, taking pieces apart and putting them together, you're not putting a unique thing together. It's not the best analogy I can think of, but the point is that it's just parts that come together to make a soul. And when we call death comes, then all the parts dissipate, but they come back again to make another soul. But it's not the same soul. It's just a recurring soul, like a housing unit, if you wish, but it's not permanent because nothing inside it is permanent. And this little speech I've been giving here about sunyata and emptiness and no permanence is the basis of saying all life is suffering. Not just in the physical realm of sickness and say, mental illness, etc. Not just that. In the very physical world, we have no constant. We also, in our thoughts, continually change our thoughts all the time. But until we're ready to walk the path of the Buddha, if you're interested, we will continue to believe that there is something permanent. And the belief comes from our thoughts. And all of our literature is from our thoughts. But if the example of the chocolate makes any sense, that is, it changes whether we like it or not, then think of all the conflicting words we use among ourselves to express something which is permanent, and then we change it up again sometime later, maybe a year later, maybe 10 years later, maybe 100 years later, but still there's change, indicating one more time that there is no permanence. And so when you read the chapter, there's many versions of Buddhism you're looking at. I'm mostly concerned with that one philosophical point, which is quite deep and has many applications to all of the religions that we're looking at, and in particular, how it does go against the Hindu religion, because the Hindu believes ultimate consciousness is permanent, but Buddhist point of view is consciousness itself be changing because it is the source of our thoughts. And if our thoughts are changing and our thoughts are connected to consciousness, then it must be self-evident that consciousness must be changing itself, and there's no permanence. And that applies, as you see in the lecture, to the word God and other, even to heaven, etc. I think I'll stop with that little spiel right there. That'd be enough. If you can read the textbook and focus on the philosophical issues that I've presented to you right now, hopefully that would be useful to you. Thank you.